High County Constable John Fisk, King Township, 1804. Constable Timothy C. Pomeroy, Middlesex County, 1829. Constable Charles Richards, Port Robertson, 1854. County Constable John Morrison, Russell County, 1880. Constable William Pope, London, 1891. Constable John R. Davey, Cornwall, 1892. Detective Henry H. Fair, London, 1892. Constable Robert Rankin, Chatham, 1893. Constable William Lindsay, Comber, 1894. Constable Michael Toohey, London, 1898. Constable William Boyd, York County, 1901. Constable James Barron, Hamilton, 1903. Provincial Constable William Irving Jr., Webwood, 1904. Constable Archibald Poe, Woodstock, 1907. Constable John Acton, Toronto, 1908. High County Constable Alfred F.H. Campeau, Essex County, 1912. Chief John A. McCarthy Jr., Stratford, 1913. Constable Matthew Hamilton, Stratford, 1913. Constable William Roque, Coburg, 1915. Detective Frank A. Williams, Toronto, 1918. Sergeant Samuel J. Arnold, Kingston, 1919. Constable George Armstrong, Nipigon, 1919. County Constable Albert C. Springstead, Wentworth County, 1919. Chief Angus J. McClellan, Port Arthur, 1920. Constable Richard A. Beard, Napanee, 1921.
Constable Reginald Pryor, Hamilton, 1921. County Constable William L. Pickard, Kent County, 1922. Constable William M. Halloway, Guelph, 1922. Constable John R. Smith, Fort Erie OPP, 1922. Constable Joseph Truman Thorold, 1922. Constable Fred Lefebvre, North Bay, 1923. Sergeant John Urquhart, Cobalt, OPP, 1923. Traffic Officer John E. Waddell, London, 1925. County Constable Everest Laframboise, Essex County, 1925. Constable Frederick Rains, Hamilton, 1925. Temperance Inspector Thomas H. Constable, Cochrane, 1926. Constable Charles W. St. Charles, Madoc, 1926. Traffic Officer William O.K. McGilvery, Department of Highways, Toronto, 1927. Traffic Officer Lee W. Metcalf, Department of Highways, Grimsby, 1927. Traffic Officer Andrew McKay, Department of Highways, Newmarket, 1927. Traffic Officer Hiram F. O'Callahan, Department of Highways, Kempville, 1928. Constable Norman F. Maker, Peterborough OPP, 1928. County Constable Samuel J. Vanstone, Ontario County, 1928. Constable Albert E. Fisher, Toronto, 1928. Detective William R. Clark, Hamilton, 1928. Traffic Officer Miles Campbell, Department of Highways, Ottawa, 1929. Constable Thomas I. Cahoe, Bancroft, 1929. Traffic Officer Elmer F. H. Wilson, Department of Highways, Leamington, 1929. Traffic Officer Fred Bingley, Department of Highways, Hagersville, 1929. Sergeant Thomas Kirk, York County, 1930.
Constable James A. McNichol, Crowland Township, 1930. Constable Roy A. McQuillan, Toronto, 1930. Constable Blair C. Brown, Trenton, 1931. Constable John F. Montgomery, Westboro OPP, 1931. Constable Albert J. Nault, Sudbury, 1931. Chief John W. Burden, Strathroy, 1931. Constable Charles Hefferon, Brampton OPP, 1932. Constable Daniel J. Craig, Chesterville, 1932. Constable Joseph DeFerrari, Toronto, 1932. Constable Russell Lemon, Kitchener OPP, 1934. Constable Colin C. McGregor, St. Thomas, 1934. Chief Thomas McCain, East York Township, 1934. Constable Edward McMaster, Toronto, 1935. Constable Edward Knox, Toronto, 1935. Constable George E.J. Lewis, Sarnia, 1936. Constable Oval E. Story, Owen Sound OPP, 1936. Constable Robert C. Malig, Canadian National Railway, 1937. Constable George E. Horan, Belleville RCMP, 1937. Sergeant Frederick Davidson, Sudbury, 1937. Constable David D. Beckett, Windsor, 1937. Constable Bartlett Smith, Stamford Center OPP, 1937. Constable Robert D. Eddington, Warren OPP, 1938. Constable Donald C. Sherville, Hamilton OPP, 1938. Detective James H. Watson, Toronto, 1938. Constable Elmer A. Shepard, Kirkland Lake, OPP, 1939.
Constable Frederick R.T. Blucher, Port Credit, OPP, 1939. Constable Alfred J. Ferguson, Brockville, OPP, 1940. Constable Harold H. Dent, Rockland, OPP, 1940. Constable Donald L. Pickle, Mimico, OPP, 1940. County Constable Harry Fordham, Elgin County, 1942. Constable John W. Scott, Toronto, 1942. Constable John Moyes Peterborough, 1942. Chief Thomas Espy, Pembroke, 1943. Constable Charles F. Hayner, Toronto, 1943. Constable George R. Vanderveer, Sarnia, 1944. Constable Robert W. Duncan, Bowmanville OPP, 1945. Detective Thomas Stoneman, Ottawa, 1945. Constable Robert A. Wright, Toronto, 1945. Constable Francis A. Graham, Windsor, 1947. Constable Douglas Reynolds, Chatham, 1947. Constable Merritt C. Gray, Kingston, 1948. Constable George Ewell, Brampton OPP, 1948. Constable James B. Henderson, Kingston, RCMP, 1948. Constable Reginald Morden, Little Current OPP, 1949. Constable Edward Terrell, Sudbury, 1949. Constable Jerry Dolt, Sudbury, 1949. Constable John Ferguson, Exeter OPP, 1949. Constable Cecil Holden, Toronto, 1950. Constable Frank Hare, Port Dover, 1951. Constable Joseph R. Battersby, Toronto, 1951.
Constable Millard A. Brennan, Kingston, 1951. County Constable Mont A. Wood, Lennox and Addington County, 1951. Sergeant of Detectives Edmund Tong, Toronto, 1952. Detective Sergeant James Priest, Toronto, 1952. Corporal Harold T. Shaughnessy, Port Colborne OPP, 1953. Corporal Henry Gilchrist, Tilsonburg OPP, 1954. Constable Kenneth Lennon, Etobicoke Township, 1954. Constable George Constantino, Ottawa, 1954. Constable Ernest Paul, Coppercliff, 1955. Constable John A.C. Behan, Perth OPP, 1956. Constable Louis R. Durant, Markham Township, 1956. Sergeant Claire J. McGillan, Peterborough, 1957. Constable Philip H. De La Rue, Matheson OPP, 1957. Constable Peter R. Seaborn, Kenora OPP, 1957. Constable Henry J. Harper, Gananoque OPP, 1957. Constable Ronald Pitt, Morrisburg, 1957. Constable George W. Smith, Windsor, 1957. Corporal Herbert M. Smart, Toronto RCMP, 1958. Constable Maurice Melanchuk, Toronto RCMP, 1958. Constable George H.E. Ransom, Aurelia RCMP, 1958. Constable Glenn F. Farrow, Aurelia RCMP, 1958. Constable David M. Perry, Aurelia RCMP, 1958. Constable Willis J. Jacob, Barrie OPP, 1958. Constable Calvin R. Fulford, Ear Falls OPP, 1958. Constable John B. Perkins, Metropolitan Toronto, 1959.
Constable Edward R. Wickens, Aurelia OPP, 1960. Constable Theodore D. Christensen, Metropolitan Toronto, 1961. Constable Dennis J. Winstanley, Stamford Township, 1962. Constable Frederick J. Nash, Metropolitan Toronto, 1962. Corporal James S. McDonald, Pembroke OPP, 1962. Constable David R. Gregory, Hamilton, 1962. Constable Thomas J. Black, Woodstock, 1962. Constable Harley Highland, Sandwich East Township, 1963. Constable Jeffrey Armstrong, Ottawa, 1963. Constable Arthur T. Truman, Metropolitan Toronto, 1963. Constable Patrick C. Armstrong, Powassan, OPP, 1963. Detective Kenneth J. Evans, Metropolitan Toronto, 1963. Detective Sergeant John H. Bassett, Metropolitan Toronto, 1963. Constable Walter E. McCauley, Guelph, 1964. Constable Alexander Proden, Dutton OPP, 1964. Sergeant Laurier C. Quesnel, Sudbury, 1965. Constable Ronald F. Webster, Toronto Township, 1966. Constable John R. Mackey, Rockcliffe OPP, 1966. Constable Edward G. Holdsworth, Whitechurch Township, 1966. Constable Thomas J. Emery, Downsview OPP, 1966. Constable James I. Hamilton, Listowel OPP, 1967. Retired Chief Cully F. Rocher, Listowel, 1967. Constable Gerald F. Mills, Whitechurch Township, 1968. Constable Peter J. Kirk, Hawkesbury, OPP, 1968. Constable Samuel E. Ankenman, Sebringville, OPP, 1968.
Constable Bradford E. Brown, Sudbury OPP, 1968. Detective Sergeant Lorne J. Chapatis, Peterborough OPP, 1968. Corporal James Smith, Peterborough OPP, 1968. Sergeant John C. McMurridge, Hamilton, 1968. Constable Robert C. Carrick, Sandwich West Township, 1969. Constable David Goldsworthy, Metropolitan Toronto, 1969. Sergeant David Tuckey, Ottawa, 1970. Constable William R. Rogers, Petrolia OPP, 1970. Constable Stephen H. Schultz, Brantford OPP, 1970. Constable Mark L. Holden, Trenton, 1970. Constable John C.A. Verrill, Oakville OPP, 1971. Constable Donald H. Lewis, Metropolitan Toronto, 1972. Detective Douglas T. Sinclair, Metropolitan Toronto, 1972. Detective Michael Irwin, Metropolitan Toronto, 1972. Constable Claire L. Lackey, Little Current OPP, 1972. Constable James Lothian, Metropolitan Toronto, 1973. Constable Leslie Maitland, Metropolitan Toronto, 1973. Detective Thomas B. Cooper, Kingston, 1973. Constable Leonard G. Slater, North Bay, 1973. Constable Vaughn B. McKay, Sudbury OPP, 1973. Corporal Evan V. Gilmore, Spanish OPP, 1973. Constable Luciano J. De Simone, Niagara Regional, 1974. Constable Gerald A. Thompson, Kempville OPP, 1975. Constable Maurice R.J. Chatterson, Forest OPP, 1975. Constable Gary V. McDonald, Forest OPP, 1975.
Detective Ronald G. Spruill, Peel Regional, 1975. Constable Lee E. Wilson, Metropolitan Toronto, 1975. Corporal Donald R. Irwin, Kitchener, OPP, 1976. Corporal Ronald E. Lee, Dowling, OPP, 1976. Constable Paul G. Gosling, Metropolitan Toronto, 1976. Constable David C. Kirkwood, Ottawa, 1977. Sergeant Ronald E. McKean, Collingwood, 1977. Constable John S. Kuznier, Thunder Bay, 1978. Constable William I. Seward, Toronto RCMP, 1978. Constable James L. Begbie, Trenton, 1978. Constable John Lau, Kingston, 1978. Constable Henry Snedden, Metropolitan Toronto, 1978. Constable Paul E. Patterson, Oak Ridges, OPP, 1978. Constable Duncan T. McAleese, Simcoe OPP, 1980. Constable George H. Bennett, Aurelia OPP, 1980. Constable Michael W. Sweet, Metropolitan Toronto, 1980. Constable Thomas Hicks, Sudbury OPP, 1980. Constable William F. Shores, Dutton OPP, 1980. Constable Richard M. Verdecchia, Huntsville OPP, 1981. Constable Kenneth M. Sweet, Ottawa, 1981. Constable Percival B. Cummins, Metropolitan Toronto, 1981. Constable Barry F. McKinnon, Hamilton, RCMP, 1981. Constable William H. Smith, North Bay OPP, 1982. Detective Inspector Lorne I. Foran, Toronto OPP, 1982. Constable Richard J.C. Hopkins, Mount Forest OPP, 1982.
Detective William T. Hawkins, Peel Regional, 1982. Constable Volker H. Shaja, Peel Regional, 1982. Constable Russell O'Connor, Ottawa, 1983. Constable Bruce K. Crew, Godrich OPP, 1983. Constable David W. Utman, Nepean, 1983. Corporal William F. McIntyre, Toronto OPP, 1984. Constable Douglas F. Tribling, York Regional, 1984. Constable Dwayne B. Pucala, Peel Regional, 1984. Constable David A. Dunmore, Metropolitan Toronto, 1984. Constable William J. Grant, York Regional, 1984. Constable John G. Ross, Woodstock OPP, 1984. Constable Vernon L. Miller, Matheson OPP, 1984. Constable Richard J. McLaughlin, Spanish OPP, 1985. Constable Donald C. Campbell, Kincardine OPP, 1985. Constable Mario J. E. Tessier, Ottawa RCMP, 1985. Constable Randall F. Skidmore, Coboconk OPP, 1986. Corporal Maurice R. Lavoie, Little Current OPP, 1986. Constable Stephen J. Peasel, Niagara Regional, 1988. Constable Hugh G.M. Lynn, Metropolitan Toronto, 1988. Constable John R. Gravoski, Niagara Falls OPP, 1989. Constable Thomas J. Cooper, Grassy Narrows OPP, 1991. Constable Brian J. Hutchison, Ottawa RCMP, 1991. Constable Scott W.D. Rossetier, Ingersoll, 1991. Constable Andrew B. Gordon, Madoc OPP, 1992. Constable Jeffrey Pelosi, Niagara Regional, 1993.
Constable Richard E. Neisted, Minden, OPP, 1993. Constable Joseph J. McDonald, Sudbury Regional, 1993. Constable Jean J. A. Deforge, Castleman OPP, 1993. Constable Richard M. Jean, Castleman, OPP, 1993. Constable Albert S. Taylor, Nicatchewanin First Nations, 1993. Constable Todd Bayless, Metropolitan Toronto, 1994. Constable John W. Knight, Metropolitan Toronto, 1994. Constable Kenneth Y. Roy, South Porcupine OPP, 1995. Constable Michael W. Gula, Niagara Falls OPP, 1996. Constable Thomas P. Coffin, Midland OPP, 1997. Detective Constable William D. J. Hancox, Toronto, 1998. Constable David R. Nicholson, Waterloo Regional, 1998. Detective Constable Keith A. Badger, Caledon OPP, 1998. Sergeant Richard T. McDonald, Sudbury Regional, 1999. Constable Charles Mercier, Niagara Falls OPP, 1999. Constable James C. McFadden, Chatham Kent OPP, 1999. Sergeant Margaret J. Eve, Chatham, Kent, OPP, 2000. Constable Laura J. Ellis, Toronto, 2002. Constable Paul Newdirt, Walpole Island, First Nations, 2002. Constable Alan Kuzmik, South Simcoe, 2002. Constable Philip R. Shrive, Renfrew, OPP, 2003. Constable John P. Flagg, Kingston, OPP, 2003. Constable Christopher Garrett, Coburg, 2004. Constable Tyler L. Boutillier, Grenville, OPP, 2004. Constable Michael J. A. Sydock, Port Credit, OPP, 2004.
Constable Andrew J. Potts, Bracebridge, OPP, 2005. Corporal Matthew D.J. Dinning, 2nd Military Police Regiment, CFB Petawawa, 2006. Constable John C. Atkinson, Windsor, 2006. Constable Donald J. Doucette, Sault Ste. Marie, 2006. Constable David Mounsey, Huron OPP, 2006.
Welcome to the 20th Annual Ontario Police Memorial Foundation Ceremony of Remembrance on Rogers TV. I'm Deborah Hutchison, and joining me from the Ontario Police Memorial Foundation is Mr. Doug Allen. Doug, we're here today to pay tribute to the 266 police officers in Ontario who have fallen in the line of duty. And this year also marks the 20th anniversary.
Yes, it's a memorial that we've built with the province of Ontario 20 years ago, and it was there for the purpose of we shall never forget the 266 officers that gave their lives in the line of duty serving the citizens of the province as police officers. And it remains forever with its monuments and quartz stones as a memory for everyone that's given their life in the line of duty.
The memorial itself has two very distinct statues.
Yes, it's two officers, one in the pre-1990s dress, being a forged cap, cross strap you'll see on it, and the other one is more modern, with the short jacket and the holsters and the proper pants, tactical pants that officers now wear. The memorial is a bronze statue. It's about 2.5 meters high. It depicts both a female and a male police officer, and it was created by Ziggy Puchta. He's famous for creating bronze statues in the province of Ontario. He actually created the Fireman's Memorial statue just down the street here of a fireman coming out of a fire in full uniform with a child in his hand.
Okay.
His other ones are, of course, the bridge in Sarnia of the Canada geese flying, and he was quite an artist and passed away in 2015.
Well, joining us now is Trevor Poole, Guard of Honor Commander and Sergeant from London Police. Welcome, sir.
Thank you for having me today.
You know, this ceremony is to remember fallen officers, but it's also full of rich history and protocol. Can you explain what is it that you are responsible for as Guard of Honor Commander?
So I do have the honor of being the Guard of Honor Commander. So our primary function is to be the greeting for the families We bring the families to the memorial. We escort them around. We basically provide any type of need that they may encounter. We try to cover off those needs. As well, I'm in charge of laying the wreaths as well. So we coordinate with the members who are going to be laying the wreaths, and we get to perform that ceremony as well.
You are also a sergeant with the London Police Service.
That is correct.
Now, London is very fortunate in that they have not had an officer fall in the line of duty for 110 years.
That is correct. The late 1800s was the last time that London has had that happen. So we've been very fortunate throughout our time.
Yeah, but you did train auxiliary member Alan Hack. Alan went on to join the OPP, and you trained him at the police college, correct?
That is correct. I was part of our training branch at one point, and I had the honor of training Alan while he was an auxiliary member with us. As well, I was seconded to the Ontario Police College when Alan went through the college as well.
Unfortunately, we lost Alan, the result of an accident in 2009, and we often talk about family members and how they cope with the loss, but can you tell us what it's like to lose a colleague, or in this case, someone that you knew and you had trained?
It hits the policing family actually quite hard. We all mourn in our own different ways, and there's times where we evaluate even ourselves. Even though Alan wasn't a member with us anymore, he was a member with the OPP. Every loss within the policing family in the training unit, we would actually analyze what happened, not for the purposes of criticizing any actions that had occurred, but so that we can learn from those actions so that other agencies can still be as fortunate as we are to not lose members in the line of duty.
I think that's a very important point, because there hasn't been a member pass away in the line of duty for the last 5 years. And I think thanks to that, health and safety, improvement in equipment and technology, I mean, it's very fragile.
That's correct.
But we've been fortunate enough not to have anybody killed in the line of duty for the last 5 years or die in the line of duty, and I think that's why. Because we learned from the 266 officers that came before us. We sat down and analyzed it, and we found out what the best practice is. And that's a credit to the chiefs, the police service boards, and associations, because it costs a lot of money to do that.
It does. Police tactics, if you even look what we were doing 10 years ago compared to what we are doing today, a lot of our tactics have drastically changed. In the way we execute warrants, in the way that we train our officers, how to even do a motor vehicle stop. A lot of that has changed. Our equipment is improving, and all of that benefits the policing community.
Okay, Trevor Poole, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me.
Okay.
Take care.
You are watching the 20th Annual Ontario Police Memorial Foundation Ceremony of Remembrance. Doug, tell us a little bit about what's happening at this point in the ceremony.
We see the mass police pipe band coming in. They're leading the officers around Queen's Park, and you see that now with the flags. Now, there's officers from throughout the province, from the United States. There's also people from the border services, the provincial detention centers, all here to pay tribute to the fallen officers. And you can see them now marching down past the Queen's Park building on the far side of Queen's Park.
You know, someone who knows a lot about the history of this event is David Brown, retired OPP sergeant and historian, and he joins us now. And now, welcome.
Thank you. Good morning.
Now, Dave, you are retiring from your historian position this year, but you helped create this memorial. You were front and center at its planning. As you said, you know, your fingerprints are all over this project, and here we are at its 20th year. Hard to believe.
It is hard to believe. The planning and committee work began about 2 years before that, so it's about 22 years for me being involved here. I didn't just take on the historian part when I left the board of directors. I did it right up until we unveiled. So there were approximately a dozen officers that I had found and we added to the wall prior to the unveiling in 2000.
Tell us how you've seen the memorial grow, something you don't want to see.
Well, we never want to see another active member added, but unfortunately reality is it will happen. The majority of the names on that wall are a result of motor vehicle collisions. We've tried to preach that to new recruits. You're not in a bubble, a protective bubble, so you need to pay attention when you are going to a call. You're no good if you can't get to a call. So learning from the history of the memorial and what happened with all of these officers is very important, or else these officers have died in vain. So we try to make sure that the information we have found we share with all police services and new recruits especially.
There are also historical officers that are added from time to time. What challenges do you face when you're researching these historical deaths?
Well, information comes from families, from different retired officers, members. We have one member in particular, the Deputy Chief of Smith Falls Police is a historian himself, and he'll come across doing research. He'll come across a small snippet of a newspaper article somewhere in the province, as I have and other members have, and he sends it to me to let's start doing the research. One of the longest ones I carried went on a couple of years ago, Mont Wood. The information I had received from a Toronto Star newspaper clipping from 1951, and I carried that for almost 10 years. I couldn't find him. I didn't know where he was from, didn't say what police service he was, and by luck I stopped into a small newspaper in Tweed, Ontario, and found the whole story. And from there on I found his family, and they were here and they loved what we've done. So as long as we're finding historic ones to make families proud of what their loved one did, then we're doing the right thing.
Good old-fashioned detective work, in other words.
It's exact same as detective work, exactly. Being a retired police officer has not hurt me at all on digging up facts on individuals. Now
tell us a bit about the James Kierstead print that's available once again for purchase.
Well, James Kierstead is an Ontario artist. He's a former OPP officer. He was 11 years on the OPP. And back in the early days, 2000, 2001, as a very early committee, we were trying to figure out how do we fund this day. It was costing us to host this was about $25,000, and we didn't have ongoing income coming in to host this. So I went to him and said, would you come to the unveiling and paint the memorial for us so that we could sell it as a fundraiser? He jumped on board right away. 11 years in the OPP, he was all over it. So he painted the print, and then I went around and twisted arms, sold out the artist proofs immediately. Most of the police services that have somebody named on the wall have bought it and hang it in their lobbies or in their boardrooms. And now, we ran out of those. So we've now been able to bring it back and offer it to members of the public, family members, police officers that would like to have a copy of it. If you go through the website, the Ontario Police Memorial website, you will be able to make contact and order one.
All right, Dave, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for being here.
Thanks for all your work, Dave.
Thank you, Doug.
Okay, so the ceremony is moving along. Premier Doug Ford, we just saw him arrive.
Premier Ford is here. The last person to arrive will be the Lieutenant Governor. The Lieutenant Governor, of course, represents the Queen and is always last to arrive in any formal ceremony.
As we mentioned, you know, we are remembering these officers. They may have fallen in the line of duty, but we're remembering them in life. Important, they were heroes in life, not death. Talk to me about that.
That was the wife of an officer David Nicholson from Waterloo. David Nicholson died in the line of duty while diving to save a young child that was caught in a water slough in the Kitchener-Waterloo area. And she said after the funeral that my husband was a hero in life, not death, as to his heroic actions there. The memorial adopted that. We created a memorial pin, which is a pewter pin. On the right-hand side of it, it has a badge with the Ontario Trillium in it, representing the police officers of Ontario. The other side of it is the actual replica of the wall with the Trillium vine going through the top of it, as you would see on the wall, and heroes in life, not in death, engraved. Now, this pin is worn by officers on days like today, the memorial, the Canadian Memorial in September, and any time that an officer is killed in the line of duty. There is one more very special thing about this pin, that families will wear it, and they're identified because the Trillium is painted white for them, to identify them as a family member who's lost a loved one in the policing community.
A very subtle difference, Doug, but a very, very important one.
Yes.
To boot.
Very much.
Over the years, we have spoken to many family members of the fallen officers, parents, spouses, and yes, children. We often say that this event is a chance for families to reconnect and to honor their loved ones. We're pleased now to introduce Brenda Orr. Hello, Brenda.
Hello. Thank you for having me here.
Brenda is wife of fallen OPP Constable Dave Mounsey. Constable Mounsey passed away in November of 2006 after losing control of his cruiser, correct,
Yes.
Brenda? On a very icy, snowy day. A distinguished career, not only with the OPP, but he spent 14 years in the Royal Air Force as well.
He did, yes.
So this November will mark 13 years since its passing. Perhaps talk to us about the support that you received after that tragic day, in the days, months, and even years after Dave's death.
Actually, the support was incredible. Right at the beginning, everybody just comes around you, and I had co-workers actually come and move into my house and do things like answer the phone and the door, and the support from the community as well. It was overwhelming. And then events like this bring it all back, that the support is still there. And then we started a group for the widows called Soul Survivors of Law Enforcement, and that has been a godsend for all of us.
Today you will be laying a wreath representing the families of the fallen officers. What does this mean to you?
It's bittersweet that we're here doing it. I actually was an OPP officer myself. I just retired after 30 years, and Dave and I used to come to the memorials and march as part of the West Region OPP Color Party. So I used to be on the other side of this, marching, and it's such to honor the families, and what a difference when you now know what it means to those families that we were marching to honor, and now I'm on the other side. So it means a lot. It means a lot that people still care and recognize our heroes, like Rick Hansen, Terry Fox. Those are heroes that everybody knows all the time, but to have these heroes that are recognized 30, sometimes 100, thanks to you, 100 years later, are recognized. It's incredible that they're not forgotten.
Now, Dave's colleague, OPP Constable Patrick Armstrong, he created the Dave Mounsey Memorial Fund, and the fund donates life-saving defibrillators to public access, correct?
Yes, to any fallen police, fire, paramedic, and military that were killed in the line of duty. And as of yesterday, they donated 107 defibrillators, and 3 of them have actually saved lives. So that is, to me, that it's the essence of who Dave was. That's what he wanted to do, was help and save lives, and he's still doing it even though he's not physically here with us, thanks to Patrick. So, yes.
Excellent.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent.
Brenda, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Take care.
Thank you.
You are watching the 20th Annual Ontario Memorial Police Foundation Ceremony of Remembrance.
Thanks very much.
away from the start of the ceremony, Doug. The name of every single fallen officer has been spoken during the reading of the honor roll this morning. What are we looking at right now?
We're looking at the officers coming together in front of Queen's Park, preparing for the ceremony itself. Premier Ford has arrived, and well, what we're going to see in this ceremony is certainly very much of the tradition of a military police type ceremony. It's very regimented. We have different events. One of the ones is the 3-volley salute, which is done by the Limber Gunners. The Limber Gunners is a organization that acquires and restores and maintenance of historic artillery from the wars. And it's associated with the 7th Toronto Regiment, RCA. The volleys would be done with a 25-pound howitzer that they've restored that was used in the last Second World War. It was used in the Korean War by the British and the Allies. So we're very fortunate to have them here.
It's a very somber moment when you hear that go off.
It's meant to be a somber moment, but it's also a time to remember. Remember the officers that used to work with, that gave us service to the province of Ontario, police service to the province of Ontario. What we're hearing now in the background is the Ontario Police choruses. That's all the choruses from throughout the province coming together, and we've seen them practicing earlier on. There's over 100 of them that have come here today on this beautiful day to give us song and help in the Remembrance ceremony. Also, we have here with us is the Waterloo Brass Band. Waterloo Police Brass Band is from Waterloo. It comes every year and will assist in the national anthems, and is an excellent feature to the ceremony itself. We also have we'll have the single piper piping to the mass band. So this is interesting because in Scotland, when a warrior was out by himself and piped across the hills, he would get a response. And when he gets a response, knowing that his friends and support is across the hills, close to him, he loses his feel of loneliness during his time of sorrow. So that's another significant part of the ceremony itself.
Families started to arrive quite early this morning, and that is who is seated. Family members at the front of the ceremony there.
Well, it's a beautiful day, and the family members have come here. It's a very emotional time for the family members because it's bringing back some bad memories, but it's also having to get back with people that they've talked to in the past, like the organization the Widows and Widowers have put together. It's to renew old acquaintances and a time to remember the good as well as the bad part of their spouse being an officer that passed away in the line of duty.
So many different police services are represented here today.
Yes, there's across the province, almost every police service, OPP in Toronto, all the major forces. There's also police services from outside the province. We see the RCMP and their Reds here today as well. And we'll have American officers. We have a New York City officer here today that's going to lay a wreath on behalf of the United States of America, showing support for our officers and those who are being memorialized here today.
This ceremony, Doug, is also open to the public, and I've noticed passers-by stopping and joining in on the event as well.
Yes, it's certainly open for the public to come in, participate, pay their respects to the fallen officers in Ontario, and we appreciate their support.
And we're currently awaiting the Lieutenant Governor before the ceremony can get underway as well, correct?
Yes, the Lieutenant Governor will enter the ceremony, be met at the curb by the President and Vice President of the Ontario Police Memorial, and they will escort the party, including the Lieutenant Governor, to her seat, and at which time the memorial will begin. Today's MC is
Mr. Kevin Frankish.
Mr. Kevin Frankish. He dropped past here earlier on.
Yes.
And said hello. And it's one of the first times we've had an MC outside of the police community, but certainly he's a big police supporter.
Yes.
And we're happy to have him here today. I just want to mention as well, the reading of the honor roll today was done by two recent recruits, graduate recruits from the Ontario Police College. Each year, new recruits picked by the college come to the ceremony and read the names of those who gave their lives in the line of duty. And this year's recruits were Constable John Hill from OPP and recruit Natalie Thompson from the Toronto Police Service. And we thank them for their contributions to this ceremony.
They did a wonderful job.
They did.
The reading of the names, the honor roll, it began about 40 minutes before the service?
It took about 40 minutes. The recruits come down here yesterday. They are coached on proper pronunciation because we want to have this perfect for the families when they hear the names of their loved one come through. And certainly the families have shown great appreciation for this, and it's a good experience for the recruits as to recognizing this is what has happened in the past. History is always important.
We were talking earlier about the pin. You're wearing one.
Yes.
I'm wearing one. Thank you very much,
Yep.
Mr. Douglas Allen. And of course, Brenda Orr was wearing one as well. And the significance of having the white trillium on it, being a family member.
Yes, that's something that the original committee decided to do to allow the family members to be recognized and respected. And this is the Lieutenant Governor being escorted by the President and Vice President of the Ontario Police Memorial. As well as her aide-de-camp in the police uniform.
You are watching the 20th Annual Ontario Police Memorial Foundation Ceremony of Remembrance here at Queen's Park in Toronto on Rogers TV.
Ladies and gentlemen, the singing of our national national anthems of Canada and the United States by retired Cleveland Police Officer Sergeant Kennedy B. Jones.
By the dawn's early light, what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave. Oh, Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love from all of us command. With glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true north, strong and free. From far and wide, oh Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God, keep our land glorious and free. Oh Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Oh Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Order! Pray! Stand! East! And easy!
Your Honors, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to Queen's Park, and what a beautiful, beautiful morning we have this morning in so many ways. I would like to ask Jim Mockler to deliver our opening prayer.
Let us pray. God of compassion and love, we ask your blessing on our province. May we never take for granted its beauty found in our land, our people, and the gift of our diversity. As we come to this sacred place, we keep the flame of faith alive in our hearts. As we read the names etched upon the markers, we are grateful that these names have also been written for all ages in the palm of your loving hand. Hold those who have gone before us in your loving embrace. Remind us that nothing dies. Life is only transformed into new life. We have come to honor lives given and lives lived in the service of the citizens of Ontario. Give all of them a holy rest and peace at the last, with their duty complete. Amen.
This is the 20th year that we carry on the tradition of honoring our heroes in life. I want to thank everyone for being here at Queen's Park today at this ceremony of remembrance, especially those of you who have come from a great long distance. The memorial site across the street stands forever as a symbol of our respect and our gratitude for the service and ultimate sacrifice of 266 of our fallen colleagues. I would like to introduce the President of the Ontario Police Memorial Foundation now, Mr. Mike Adair.
Good morning, Your Honor. Good morning, Mr. Premier. Thank you, Mr. Frankish, for the introduction and being a part of today's ceremony. Good morning, everyone. And I just want to say what a beautiful morning we have been blessed with today. As President of the Ontario Police Memorial Foundation, it is my privilege to welcome you to Queen's Park for the 20th ceremony of remembrance. I want to welcome the men and women of the law enforcement community who have traveled from across the province and great distances to be here. Your presence is appreciated and respected. On behalf of the Ontario Police Memorial Foundation, I would also like to extend a warm welcome to our many distinguished guests who have joined us here today. The Lieutenant Governor of Ontario, the Honourable Elizabeth Dowswell, the Premier of Ontario, the Honourable Doug Ford, the Solicitor General, the Honourable Sylvia Jones, the Attorney General, the Honourable Carolyn Mulrooney, and other members of the legislature that are here today. Thank you. Thank you to all our event volunteers who have worked tirelessly organizing this important day. The work each of you do is important, and it helps to ensure our fallen officers and families that they have left behind are being recognized in a meaningful way. This includes members of the Ontario Police Memorial Foundation, both board and broader committee, police associations throughout the province, the volunteers from the policing community, the media, and the countless others who have made today's ceremony of remembrance possible. Thank you. Each year we gather here on the first Sunday of May to honor not only our fallen officers, but also to recognize the contribution of their family members. It is not lost on us, the incredible life-changing sacrifice that you endure every single day. We hope that you find comfort in the ceremony of remembrance, as it is imperative to keep the memories of your loved ones alive and ensure that every fallen officer from our Ontario policing family is never forgotten. To date, the names of 266 police officers have been enshrined on the Ontario Police Memorial Wall of Honour. The memorial was inaugurated in the year 2000 to honour fallen police officers and stand as a tribute to the bravery and loyalty of those who serve in Ontario's policing community, and silently honour those officers who sacrificed their lives with a desire to make a difference in the pursuit of justice. 25 active members have died and have been added to the Wall of Honour since its inauguration in 2000. It takes a special kind of person to serve in law enforcement. While most people run from danger, police officers run towards it and will continually put their lives on the line for their communities. It takes a strong, brave person to deal with the daily and often dangerous and unpredictable situations that confront officers. At times, we are forced to make critical decisions in life or death situations without a guarantee of the outcome, using only training and professional judgment as our guides. Few people knowingly put their lives in danger like these men and women have done. The 266 officers that have lost their lives in the call of duty did so with courage and with dignity. In order to protect and save the lives of others, the world is a better place because of these selfless heroes. I know that you join me in expressing our great appreciation to these brave men and women. May they rest in peace. I would like to thank all of our police officers who are here, standing with us, from across Ontario, across Canada, across the US, and beyond, as we remember and honor all of our fallen. Thank you for your service. Thank you for dealing with complex and dangerous situations. Thank you for willingly putting your lives on the line each and every day. I've always firmly believed that police officers form the foundation of a safe and just society, the social fabric of any society. Strong and safe communities exist in Ontario as a result of the work of both the sworn and civilian members from all police services across this great province. And on behalf of the Ontario Police Memorial Foundation, we again thank you for your service. Today and every day throughout the year, we remember and honor the 266 officers who have died in the line of duty. We stand together to express our respect and our gratitude and our utmost appreciation to the families of those officers who have made the ultimate sacrifice. You will never be forgotten. Our heroes in life, not death. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Adair. It is with great pleasure that I introduce the Honourable Elizabeth Dowdeswell, our Lieutenant Governor.
President Adair, Premier Ford, Father Mockler, parliamentarians, policing family and friends who grieve the fallen, mes chers amis, good morning, bonjour, bonjour. As we come together in this welcome sunshine to remember, let us also recognize and pay tribute to the people of the many Indigenous nations who have stewarded these lands from time immemorial, including the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, the Wendat peoples, and particularly the Mississaugas of the Credit. The spirit of kinship and mutual obligation that springs from treaties between First Peoples and the Crown is a symbol and a source of continuing inspiration. Je tiens à vous souhaiter la bienvenue à cette cérémonie si importante. Il nous faut toujours se souvenir de ceux qui mettent leur vie en danger pour assurer notre sécurité. Today, it is my solemn privilege to stand in solidarity with this province's police officers as we commemorate the lives and sacrifice of your fallen colleagues. I welcome officers participating today from outside Ontario, as well as members of the public who are here to pay their respects. We can be thankful that in the past year, no police officers have died in the line of duty in Ontario. We should nonetheless always keep in our hearts and minds those who have fallen to suicide, as well as those very many who sustain both visible and invisible wounds. Society demands much of those sworn to serve and protect. Not only are they charged with keeping us safe, but so too with preserving the peace. A very difficult responsibility, especially in these times of change and uncertainty. Our very lives often seem precarious, and conflict is so easily sparked despite the ways in which we are encouraged to join together. Those cherished social bonds so often seem likely to fray, and with those who wear the uniform left to pick up the pieces. By no means an easy task. So perhaps the best way to honor those who have laid down their lives, and indeed those who continue to serve, is to consider our common humanity, to reflect on how all of us can foster the empathy upon which our future resilience as a society will rest. The names on the memorial just across the street represent officers who have stories to tell, not just stories of their loss, but of their lives, their families, their dreams, and their deeds. The more we are prepared to listen and to learn from each other's stories, those of police officers, but also those of citizens they deal with every day in every capacity, the better able we will be to care for each other and build a more just and sustainable future, one in which we'll no longer be called upon to add names to that memorial. To the officers in attendance here today, and to those taking part in ceremonies across this province, Please know that your efforts, dedication, and achievements are inspiring. Your stories deserve to be shared far and wide, and you can certainly count on me to do so. Au nom de Sa Majesté la Reine, in behalf of the beloved sovereign's name, I offer you my sincere thanks, my respect on behalf of a grateful province. Thank you. Merci. Miigwech.
Thank you, Your Honor. It is now my privilege to introduce and call upon the Honourable Doug Ford, Premier of the Province of Ontario.
Your Honor, guests of family members, police services across, not just here in Canada, but across North America. Today we pay a tribute to 266 heroic police officers who lost their lives in the line of duty. I have the greatest respect for Ontario's finest, and I am heartbroken for the lives lost while protecting our communities and working to keep Ontario safe. My deepest personal condolences to all of you, the family, friends, and colleagues of the fallen. We owe a debt to these officers that we can never, ever repay, but we will vow to do everything we can to support their colleagues and friends who continue on every day. Your continued service is truly a tribute to the fallen. Our government will always stand with the brave and selfless men and women who put their lives at risk every day for the safety and protection of the people of Ontario. To those that we have tragically lost, please know we will never forget your service and your sacrifice. And to all the men and women serving right across our country, I want to tell you, myself, our government will always stand shoulder to shoulder with each and every one of you, and I will always, always have your back, and I will never, ever waver on that promise. I thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you, Your Honor. I turn things over now to the Ontario Police Chorus.
All
I believe that there are some portions of the ceremony in which it is appropriate to applaud, and I think this is one of them. Thank you. The ceremony of remembrance continues now with the laying of the wreaths by our honored dignitaries and guests who will be escorted by our Guard of Honor. To begin with, on behalf of the people of Ontario, the Honourable Elizabeth Dowdeswell, Lieutenant Governor. On behalf of the people of Ontario, the government of Ontario, the Honourable Doug Ford, Premier. On behalf of the members of Ontario's Police Services and the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, Trevor McKean, Ontario Provincial Police, Collingwood. And on behalf of the police officers of the United States of America, Detective Michael Catlin from the New York Police Department. And on behalf of the families, Kim Coffin and Brenda Orr. It is time now for an act of remembrance. This will consist of the last toast, a moment of silence, the lament, a volley of fire, and reveille. Ladies and gentlemen, please stand.
Others to the carry shall dare us! General salute, present us! Attention! Raise hands! Up! Attention!
Father Jim Mockler to deliver the benediction.
Blessed are you, God of all creation. As we remain grateful for those who gave their lives, we ask you to be with us in the days to come and support all those serving in policing, both sworn and civilian. Protect them in the risks they take and the sacrifices they make in order to uphold the law and ensure our citizens can live their lives in safety and peace, bringing a sense of calm to even the most chaotic of situations. Instill in them a sense of and a desire for wellness, both physical and mental. At the end of the day, keep them mindful that they have made a difference to the welfare of the people they serve and return them safely to those they love and who love them. In all the days to come, may God bless us and keep us. May God's face shine on us and be gracious to us. May God look upon us with kindness and always bring us peace. Amen.
General salute! Raise hands! Up!
The Royal Anthem. Please be seated. Once again, I want to thank you for all of your attendance today, for your part in making this ceremony of remembrance a fitting tribute to the lives of those heroes who lived and died and continue to live on in our hearts and memories, heroes in life, not death. On behalf of the Ontario Police Memorial Foundation, the officers on parade, and all the family and friends here today, I would like to acknowledge and thank the Lieutenant Governor, the Premier, the Minister of Community Safety and Correctional Services for their attendance and continued support of the event. I'm going to ask you to please stand once again as the parade prepares to march past. I would ask our guests at this point to remain at their seats. Upon completion of today's ceremony, I then want to invite everyone across the street to the Police Memorial just beyond it for refreshments and food. I'd like to invite Your Honor Elizabeth Dowdeswell, Lieutenant Governor of Ontario, and the official party to be escorted by the Guard of Honor to receive the salute and the march past.
To the right in column of route. Right! Turn!
I would invite now the families to also join in viewing the march past. the remainder of today's guests.
You are watching the 20th Annual Ontario Police Memorial Foundation Ceremony of Remembrance here at Queen's Park in Toronto on Rogers TV.
RCMP leading by the right, left wheel, quick march!
And I let you know that this is another one as we watch the march past and we remember those we have lost, we remember their life. This is another one of those times where applause is entirely appropriate.
March past near the end of the ceremony. What's the significance of this?
The significance at the end of the ceremony is to have the march past be recognized by the Queen's representative at concluding the ceremony itself. They will come past, the aide-de-camp will take the salute as each company or flag passes, or police force in this case, and the colors of the uniforms, basically in the province of Ontario, it's mainly the dark navy, and you'll see one, the RCMP is the bright red, and it looks very sharp as they walk past.
We also have auxiliary officers as well as regular officers here today too as well.
Yes, the auxiliary officers play an important part for policing. They're volunteers. They come out and assist at special events, and even on patrol. They don't not have the authority of a police officer, but the officers, they can assist the officers with parade duties, directing traffic, etc. So they do play an important role in community policing as well during hosting events, the police service hosting events.
Is there an order, Doug, as to which service goes first?
The order will be the RCMP, as the federal force would come past first. The OPP would be second, as the OPP are all commissioned officers, as opposed to a regular police service where only the senior officers are the commissioned officers. And then it will come through in order after that. Toronto will follow, and then the others will fall in after that.
All done with perfect precision.
All done with perfect precision, thanks to the many parade marshals and people that are here to lead the 1,000 officers we have out today to for this ceremony. It was a fantastic turnout, and certainly appreciate it, and the families, I'm sure, are very pleased with the turnout and the beautiful weather we've had here today, and the opportunity to have the memorial ceremony in front of Queen's Park. where everybody can look on and see the ceremony.
Many different branches of the service, as in there is, we can't see them right here, but the mounted branches. There's also
you have your civilian
motorcycle.
Your civilian branches are represented here as well. Court security, dispatchers, records, people, civilian support people for the police service, all play an integral role in bringing community safety. And they're all here today marching with their units.
We've asked our guests what it means to them to be here today, but Doug, I have to ask you, as a retired police officer and now an active member of the foundation, what does it mean to you to be here?
Well, it gives an opportunity to obviously remember the officers. There's been officers that I've worked with that are on the memorial wall. It gives me an opportunity to reflect on my association with them. And it also, many of the officers I didn't know, but I know of the circumstances which surrounded their demise, and it certainly gives time to reflect upon that. These officers did not die in vain. These officers, we learn from all of these incidents. We examine them now very closely. And as I said before when Dave Brown was here, I think that this is very important. What the chiefs and the police service boards and city councils and provincial government have bought into, that they must keep up this training to keep our officers safe in the province of Ontario. There's mandatory training now where officers come off the road for a day or two and receive training, and that's important. And I think we're seeing the fruition of all of this taking place over the years. I mean, it's very fragile. It could change tomorrow, and unfortunately there are incidents where it'll happen, but I think officers now are more aware of what can go on, and that they take the precautions, especially in automobile accidents, and different ways they do warrants and take the serious calls a totally different way from when I was on the police service. It's more professional and safe for the officers. Don't take any chances.
And as Dave said, it's important that you get there. You're not going to be of help to anyone if you don't get there.
That's the balance. It's getting there quickly and getting there safely. If you don't arrive, you simply are no use to anybody. You draw. If you're involved in an accident or some sort of incident while you're trying to get there, you actually draw people away from the original incident.
Dave also mentioned that, many of these officers did die in a traffic-related accident on their way to a call. Very surprising to many. I asked my young son before I came here today, how do you think, these police officers died? That wasn't his answer.
Yeah, officers drive hundreds of thousands of kilometers a year when out on patrol, and they work all day, all night. Weather conditions change. We're into ice, we're into rain, and we're also into a lot of the unknown. And if officers aren't 100% on now, getting the training and learning the dangers of a motor vehicle, that's where we've what's happened in the past. Now with the additional training, I think officers are now paying more attention. I mean, you go down the highway and you see the OPP and you say, oh, he's hiding behind this and behind that. No, he's not hiding behind her. He's protecting himself because anybody that you won't see too many officers that'll go on the shoulder 90 degree to the highway, because you simply don't have a chance if somebody decides to swerve off. I mean, it's very, I mean, the officers in Niagara, the OPP officers, all been killed on the side of the road while having a car stop. So it's one of those things you have to deal with and learn how to do it best. I mean, the change even in the police officers' lighting equipment in the cruisers and the new move over laws, that is a huge factor in saving lives of police officers, where everybody starts moving over and giving some space to the police car on the side of the road, so there's no momentary inattentiveness to the officer's vehicle and they all of a sudden crash into the back of them.
Now, we had a couple of different piper bands here today during the ceremony. One was the Ryan Russell Youth Pipe Band, was it not?
Yes, Ryan Russell was a Toronto police officer, sergeant who passed away. He was murdered by a gentleman who ran him over with a snowplow in the dead of winter, and he was killed instantly. And part of his memory, the family decided to start the Ryan Russell Memorial Band for youth in the community, so that youth would be able to learn how to play the pipes and continue that tradition on of the bagpipes. Today they played the solo piper as a group, which was, they did a fabulous job, and then the mass police bands responded to that. So I was very proud of them. They did an excellent job. Another event during the ceremony itself was the national anthem. Interesting enough, retired Kenny B. Jones of the Cleveland Police Department sang the national anthem, and excellent job.
Oh, fabulous job.
And he's done major sporting events down in the Cleveland area, and certainly did a fantastic job for us today in our memorial ceremonies, and was one of the highlights. Those who were here, and certainly those who are watching.
And speaking of the piper bands, Doug, they're just passing by us now. Let's get a listen. A ceremony steeped in tradition and respect to honor the 266 names that are on that wall, Doug, today. We've heard how important it is for today's police officers and family members to be here. Your final thoughts?
Well, I was impressed by the ceremony today for the 20th anniversary of the start of the ceremony. We just saw over 200 pipers by my quick count come through, and then behind us now another around 100 motorcycles come through, and it is a great tribute to the families and to the 266 officers that have given their lives in the line of duty, and a great day to have it.
Thank you, Doug, for being with us here today, and thanks to all of you for joining us. This has been the 20th Annual Ontario Police Memorial Foundation Ceremony of Remembrance.